Welcome back, fight fans. We're here for another week back in Vegas. Vegas 87, I think, at this point. My goodness. So this week, of course, we'll be talking about that card, Vegas 87, Rosenstrike, Gaziev, had to think about that, or Gaziev? Who knows at this point? So we'll be talking about that card, of course, and last week's card, UFC Mexico. We'll be recapping those bets right away. So let's jump right on into it. UFC Mexico, let's get talking about how that went. And we're over on the other screen. How about that? Looking good, looking good. So we'll open up with a recap of the best bets of UFC Mexico. We'll open up with that right now with, of course, the triple play. The triple play is, of course, where we pick three of the people that I gave the edge to. We smash those guys together, or ladies, and we put them into a three-leg parlay. And that went pretty well. We took away a W there. That was Muhammad Naimov. Oh, actually, no, that was a loss. I didn't update my notes there. It was actually a fat L. That was a fat L. Naimov, Moreno, that's of course where we took the L there. And then Ziam, Fares Ziam. So sadly, Moreno in the main event lost us that one, which brings us to a record of 7-9. Not great. And if you go with the units, now we are sadly back in the red a little bit. We were in the green. We put a unit down on this, so now we're just below that at 0.73 in the red. It's very small on my screen. I can't see that far. 0.73. That's where we're at with the triple play. Then, of course, we had the Grand Slam. That's where, of course, we have 4 legs instead of the 3. And you would imagine that we would be worse at picking a 4-leg compared to a 3-leg, but that's actually not true at all. We are at 8-8, which is a better record than the 3-leg parlays. How that's worked out, I still don't know, but that does mean, of course, you would imagine we are very much in the green with that. 2.53 units up after the win that we took this week, and this week was Felipe Dos Santos, a little dicey with that one, not gonna lie. Naimov in that one as well, easy win. Jauregui for the 3rd leg, and then Manuel Torres to bring it home. So that was a nice big W, and again, that's 2.53 units up on that one with an 8-8 record, looking real good with those parlays. Then, of course, we have the top dog, the best underdog of the week. I'm not gonna lie, took a little bit of a chance on this one. You know, we've been doing so well. We're up so far in the green. I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a chance on this one. I ended up picking Daniel Lacerda, and sadly, that was never close to cashing in. I mean, I mean, it was somewhat close, and then it wasn't, and then it was like, okay, yeah, we definitely lost this one. But hey, again, we've got a great record here. 10-6 for picking underdogs, especially when, I mean, we lost the last 3. We were at 10-3. So, you know, we're still doing pretty well. 10-6, I mean, that's still pretty good because, I mean, it's still our most profitable section at 5.1 units up. So we're still doing really well overall. And, you know, we're going to rein that back in. We're not going crazy with the underdogs for the next few weeks. We're picking some pretty good ones. And, I mean, they're all pretty good. Lacerda could have won, but, you know, it wasn't one of the better performances for our underdogs, that's for sure. But like I said, that's okay. We're still way up. Then, of course, finally, we've got my main pick, the sniper pick. That's my most confident pick of the week. And that ended up being Felipe Dos Santos, which was a much closer fight than I thought it was going to be, but doesn't matter. We still took home the win, which brings us to a record of 12-4, which is, again, it's still lower than I want, but again, we're just stacking up those wins now. I think that's, what is that? 4 wins in a row now, I think. I can't remember. Because we had Rinya, we had this one, and we had, I think, a couple before that, before we lost on that first episode with Thomas Peterson. We've won all of them since. So we're doing really well. It's just the number doesn't look as good as I want, but that's okay. 12-4, that's all right. We're headed in the right direction, which brings us to 1.57, so we're just slowly, clawing our way out of the red there, because it was pretty bad after we lost that Thomas Peterson one. I think we were about 6 units down for the sniper pick on that one, and we've just been climbing back ever since, and hopefully we can keep that going this week, but that's later. We'll keep talking about UFC Mexico, of course. So, you add all that up, sadly, the Moreno loss, if we would have got the Moreno win in there, we would have really stacked up the units there, but sadly that did not happen. But overall, we still made a profit. Fireworks, somewhat deserved, somewhat not, because it wasn't that much of a profit. I believe we were exactly 5 units up after last week. I don't know, you can check the tape on that one. I can't remember, but I believe we were at 5 units. Now we're at 5.33, so we did make a slight profit. It just wasn't, if Moreno would have won, like I think most people would have thought, we would be walking away with a much better profit here, but that's okay. A profit is a profit, 0.33. We're still in the green all time, still in the green for the year, still in the green altogether, and today and last week as well. So hopefully, once again, we can keep that going again, because I believe that's what now, 4 weeks in a row with profit. That's what we love to see. And that is it for the recap for UFC Mexico, the best bets. And now we're going to jump in, of course, to a recap of the edge. That is where I gave an edge to the fighters of UFC Mexico, who I thought was going to win. Of course, sometimes I don't give out an edge. I can say it's going to be even, so that, that isn't included, of course. But I do give out the edge quite often, probably sometimes a bit too much. We've been caught with some rough picks here and there, but I'm trying to rein that in, and boy, did I rein that in this week. I mean, my goodness. We'll get into the recap right now, because it was a good week for us here. And that opened up with Muhammad Naimov. I mean, could he have been the sniper pick? He probably could have and should have been, but that's okay. I mean, we still won the sniper pick anyway with Felipe dos Santos, but Naimov got a great win for us right away. Well, I mean, it was a little bit weird to watch, if we're being real. I mean, that was where Silva's knee kind of buckled, and then the fight was just over. But I mean, let's be real. Silva was getting hit quite a bit. He was getting walked down. I mean, it probably was not going to last that much longer anyway, so, in the long run, I think it was going to be the exact same result anyway. He just probably got hurt less than he would have, so probably good that happened to him anyway. No head damage, So, took the win, start the night 1-0, and that brings us to the sniper pick. Oh, button didn't work there. Dos Santos. Like I said, much closer than I thought this was going to be. Dos Santos ahead with the striking. Altamirano kind of dragging him around with the wrestling over and over and over again. Very, very, very close by the end of it. Ended up being a split, and I'm not going to lie, I try to be pretty impartial with these kind of things, so I actually kind of thought Dos Santos lost. So I was like, wow, this is going to be a bad week for us, lose the sniper pick. That's not a good way to start, because then, one of the parlays dies, you lose all the units from the sniper pick. I thought this was going to be bad, but the judges of UFC Mexico were on our side this time. I was pretty surprised, I'm not going to lie. It ended up being 29-28, 29-28, or how should I say this? Oh yeah, 29-28, 30-20. I think that's written right. So somebody had it 30-27 for Dos Santos, I believe. If I wrote that right, maybe not. Yeah. Because I wrote 29-28, 28-29, 27-30. So if you reverse that, that would be 30-27 for Dos Santos, 29-28 for Dos Santos, and 29-28 for Altamirano. I had it 29-28 for Altamirano. I don't really know how you could have it 30-27 either way. There were some weird decisions all around this card. I mean, there were four split decisions on this card. That does not normally happen. Pretty insane stuff here. So yeah, we got really lucky with that one, which is new for me because I'm usually on the wrong side of these decisions. So we got really lucky on this one because I feel like he lost that one and Altamirano won. But we move on. We started the night 2-0. Great way to start. Then that brings us to Fares-Ziam, another great win. And again, I did say that I was a little bit worried last week just because I wasn't sure, like, oh, maybe Puelles, you know, shored up those problems of being super, super one-dimensional, and maybe Fares-Ziam doesn't have the takedown defense that we thought. I mean, I was pretty worried, I'm not gonna lie. As soon as Puelles got that first takedown, I was like, I think we lost. I think we lost because he was down on the ground for quite a while. I thought we were going to be in some trouble there. Excuse me. Somehow, again, we got another split decision. I kind of did think Ziam won this one, so I think they ended up getting it right, but I will say it was very, very close, and I really could have seen it going in either direction. So maybe we got away with another one here. I don't know, but it was very, very close. Because Puelles did get a lot of takedowns, but he wasn't really doing a whole lot with them. He didn't really do a whole lot of damage, and Ziam ended up kind of recovering his position and getting to the dominant spot quite often. So it kind of made sense as to how he won the decision. I also had it 29-28, but I really could have seen it going either way. So again, maybe a little bit lucky on that one as well. Very, very close, but 3-0 to open the night. That's all we're looking for is some W's here. So working out well at that point. Then we continued the winning streak with Manuel Torres. Got the early finish, but it was a sub. I was expecting a knockout for sure. Did not expect the submission win at all, but hey, there you go. Crazy win for Torres. Amazing way. I believe that was to open the main card. Great way for Mexico to get some wins, because let's be real. I mean, especially with that Dos Santos one, kind of robbed of a win there for Altamirano, and some bad Mexican losses throughout the card. So it was kind of a rough go for the Mexican crowd, but they were still loving the fights, and this is one of the ones that they got the win. So good for them on this one. And another win actually for Mexico was the next one. It's Yasmin Jauregui. Nothing really crazy. It wasn't really one of the crazier fights to watch. I mean, it was good, but especially, you know, because some of these women's fights can be like, okay, you know, it's getting a little, you know, too much clinching, a little slow. And Jauregui is the exact opposite of that. She is not slow. She is a very, very entertaining fighter. But again, nothing insane to watch. I think it was because it was fairly one-sided. I mean, Jauregui was just really outstriking her quite a bit. Never really a danger of her losing, but also never really close to a finish, which dominant, but not super exciting. But again, we're taking home the win again. So that's, I believe that's what, 5-0 at this point to open the night. I mean, we're just cleaning up at this point. I mean, it's just too easy. Sadly, we lost one of the best fights on the card. I did give Rosas the edge here, but sadly canceled. And we were actually supposed to get it now this week, but from what I can tell, that has actually been canceled completely. So it looks like we're not going to be getting a Rosas performance at all anymore. So hopefully, I don't know, they can turn him around. maybe, I mean, I actually thought, I don't know why they were not doing this in Miami. That would have made a lot of sense. I mean, Tercios, Rosas Jr., prelims in Miami, featured prelim even maybe, you know, something like that. I don't really know why they didn't do that. Instead, they just canceled it altogether now. I don't know. Sucks. Hopefully he comes back soon. I actually was excited to see the fight in general because it looked like a pretty good fight on paper. So yeah, that's kind of disappointing, but no win, no loss. So that just doesn't, that's just whatever, you know, it's in white for a reason, but it's in white and green for a reason because it's not a loss. It's kind of a win, you know, it's a win in my books. I don't know, but it doesn't, of course, count towards the overall all-time record, which we will get to in a second. But sadly, I thought we were going to be finishing the night, a perfect night, going, what would that be, 7-0. Sadly, we end the night with a loss. I gave the win to Moreno. Brutal. I really did not see that coming, especially in a decision. I really did not see that one coming. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Moreno was just expecting, because he was expecting to fight Albazi, so maybe he was just preparing in a different way, different strategy, and got thrown Royval in a 5-rounder instead. I don't know what was going on, but it didn't really look like Moreno, the Moreno that we always see. Maybe it was the altitude. Who knows? There are so many reasons, you know, what went wrong here. But yeah, shocked, depressed. It's just sad, you know. I mean, it's in Mexico, for fuck's sake. I mean, you know, not fun to see. Not fun to see him go out like that, especially when you want the crowd to go out like that. You know, you want to see the crowd get a win as well, especially after, of course, Yair lost the co-main like that after doing so well. You know, the crowd was kind of in the dumps after that one, so you kind of wanted them to see their biggest hero, Brandon Moreno, win. And I, of course, wanted the parlays to cash in. I wanted to have a perfect night here with the picks. And it all comes crashing down with Moreno. Very, very sad to see. But yeah, you know, to be honest, I will say, though, I kind of had it for Moreno. I had it 48-47. I believe it was rounds 1, 2, and 5 for Moreno. That's what I had. But, you know, they gave it to Royval, another split decision again, so really it could have gone either way. You can't be yelling around at people like, you know, this person clearly won. No, it was a split, and honestly, this one deserved to be a split, just like a couple of the other fights on here. It was that close. I really could have seen it going either way. I personally had it 1-2-5 Moreno, so 48-47. But, you know, I'm mad about it because of the losses, but as a fan watching it, I was like, nah, okay, you know, I do see where they were coming from. And hilarious confusion though when Bruce says Brandon, and they're both like, oh, because they both, you know, that's the problem with them both having the same name, is you really don't know who won until he says the last name. So they're kind of like, wait, did I win? Did I lose? What just happened here? Oh man, great stuff. Great theater, as they say. But yeah, that brings us though to a final record of oh, I thought it was going to bring it up. It didn't bring it up. That brings us to a final record of 24-13 so far. I mean, after 2 huge weeks in a row, you know, we're stacking up these wins nicely. This is what it should be like. I mean, should we have gotten a perfect week last week? Maybe, but you know, I'll take a 1 loss. I'll take that. 24-13. That is much better. Still not as high as I'd like to be, of course, but 24-13 is definitely much better than we were seeing before, which was like a 55% record. Now this is about, it's about 60 something percent. So, you know, we're stacking them up a little bit, but really we should be in the 70%, 80% range. So hopefully we'll keep stacking up the wins here to get to that percentage. But 24-13, you know, we're making a nice recovery after some even weeks. I mean, we haven't had a losing week yet, knock on wood, but we've had a couple of even weeks. So it was like 3-3 and a draw, and then it was like 4-4 or something. Yeah, so we've had a couple of even weeks. Nice to see 2 weeks in a row now where we stacked up some good wins. And that's it for the recap for UFC Mexico. And now, of course, we will jump right on into this week's card, UFC Vegas 87, Rosenstrike, Gaziev. I believe that's how it's pronounced because it just, if you really spell it out, this makes more sense than Gaziev. Because I believe it's also pronounced Fiziev, which I don't like. I think it sounds better Fiziev. I think Gaziev also sounds better. But I believe it's pronounced Gaziev, so that is what I will be going with. Anyway, first fight of the night, and listen, this card was flipped around so much. This was an absolute nightmare to do because there were quite a few fight cancellations. There was quite a bit of movement up and down the card of where these fights were being put, like the first fight, second fight. I mean, like, especially the prelims, they were jumbled around quite a bit. And of course, like I said, the Tercios fight ended up being canceled. Just an absolute nightmare to organize because this is a PowerPoint, remember? So you had to really move shit around. But this is what it is right now. Hopefully it stays like this. And it also, by the way, means that there are a couple of fights on this card that don't have any odds yet because they just haven't come out with odds yet because these are last minute fights. But this one does have odds, and it's looking pretty good actually too. It's pretty exciting. It is Rajabov and Al-Selwady opening up the card at lightweight, and we'll open up with Rajabov. Very exciting guy so far in his UFC career. He got actually leg kick KO'd by Mateusz Rambeszki in the last fight. Nasty stuff. It was fairly close before that, but yeah, those leg kicks, I mean, good lord. And then he also had, in his debut though, he had the decision win over Ribovic there, which was very impressive to see. He is very well-rounded. I mean, this guy was in the PFL before. He did pretty well there. Beat, what's that guy's name? Oh, man. Wade. I believe it was Wade. He beat Chris Wade there, which is pretty impressive. He got some good wins over there. So this guy is pretty well-rounded. He's got some great strikes, very powerful, pretty accurate strikes. Dominated Ribovic with grappling too, so that's what I mean. Like, he really can grapple, he can really strike, he can do everything. Great wrestling, pretty good submission skills from what I've seen too, so definitely a well-rounded guy here. Not much pace though, not much pace. He's more of a power puncher than a volume striker, and he does counter well as well, so he's not really throwing out a lot of volume. It's more a lot of wrestling to kind of throw in with the occasional powerful strike and combo thrown in there. And he is definitely tough. I mean, he might have gotten leg kick TKO'd in the last one, but he ate those kicks for like for the entire fight really, and was just continuously fighting back and was continuously dangerous, doing well as well. He never gave up at all. It was really just that he kept getting dropped, and then the ref just stepped in because the legs were just brutalized. I mean, it was nasty stuff, but that is Mateusz Rambeszki for you on the other side of that one. The odds, plus 130. So definitely a close one on paper. On the other side of it, guy making his debut now, UFC debut anyway, Al-Selwady on the other side. He's 15-3. All three of those losses by first round KO, which is definitely a concern when you're going against somebody as powerful as Rajabov, of course. But from what I've seen though, you know, KO losses aside, he really is actually a very good striker. He has great accuracy. He's very fluid. You can't really tell what he's going to be doing because everything is so smooth. Very, very fun to watch as a striker. And he's very quick, has some really good movement in there, which makes his striking even better and even more dangerous. That is definitely something to watch out for. And like I said, the movement is definitely something. Fantastic movement, offense and defense, which is what I was saying. Like, it actually is kind of surprising. If you watched him, you wouldn't think that he'd been knocked out 3 times in the first round. But that's what's happened. Because when you watch him, like I said, it's very impressive. He looks very, very good. And he's also pretty fast. So yeah, the movement, the striking, definitely something to look out for. And the cardio too. He didn't slow down the entire fight on the Contender Series. He was moving well the whole time, really active the whole time. I was pretty impressed. It was definitely one of the better Contender Series performances that was a decision. So it was definitely impressive. At least I think it was a decision. Or else why would I write that it was impressive the whole fight? Anyway, very impressive, like I said, considering especially the output and the movement. It's hard to find cardio like that where you're also being super active with striking and also moving a lot. That takes a lot of cardio to do. And he did it. So like I said, I was pretty impressed with what I saw, which is probably why he's a minus 175 favorite. So he is a slight favorite in this. But the question is, of course, who am I giving the edge? Is it going to be Rajabov? Forgot his name for a second. Rajabov, or is it going to be Al-Sawadi? Do I even have an edge in this one? I mean, it doesn't seem that close on paper, let's be real, because PFL, I mean, the PFL experience of Rajabov, the KO losses of Al-Sawadi, maybe it doesn't really seem all that close, but there's a reason why Al-Sawadi is the favorite, because it is definitely close. Sawadi could get a decision if he misses, if he dodges the big shots and wrestles really well, stays active. I could definitely see him winning a decision. I don't think he's going to get a finish by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that's going to happen. Because Rajabov, like I said, very tough. I don't think he's going to get finished. But definitely a decision. And then on the other side, Rajabov could get a KO, or because he's so big, he could also use his power and his strength to get a decision like that himself. So who do I think is going to get the edge? It's even for me. There's too many questions on both sides as to how good each guy is, because I'm starting, there's kind of that impression that maybe Rajabov isn't as good as we think, which is why he's the underdog right now. And I mean, maybe Al-Sawadi isn't quite as good as we think, because he's never gone against anybody even close to this good. So there's way too many questions, like, is this guy good? Is this guy bad? How good are either one of these guys? We don't really know. So that's a problem. And there's also, like I said, a pretty strong argument for both. Like I said, Rajabov, he's huge. He could easily get a KO. And because again, Al-Sawadi has been knocked out 3 times now. We could easily see it a 4th. So there's just too many questions for me. So I'm dead even on this one, which means you would want to take the underdog if you were going to learn anything from, of course, these picks. Or this pick specifically, I should say. The next one up, it is Klein, Ludovic Klein, and AJ Cunningham on the other side. And actually, this is one of those last-minute ones that was put together because Klein was actually supposed to be fighting Joel Alvarez. Much better, much more dangerous opponent than Cunningham. Well, that is for sure. So this is the new matchup. It's Ludovic Klein against Cunningham. And I believe that this one is one of the ones that doesn't have any odds. We'll check on that in a little bit. But yeah. Klein, we will open with Klein. He, of course, again, was the one who was scheduled to fight this week anyway. He does have wins over Mason Jones, Bahamondes. Oh, did I fuck that up? I think I might have. Oh, maybe I did. I don't even know. I think I got it right. Anyway, this is the way I wrote it here in my notes. I thought I messed it up. Mason Jones, Bahamondes, and then a draw against Jai Herbert. So he's been fighting some pretty stiff competition, I would say. Stiff as in like, the 20 to 30 ranked range. I mean, they're not in the rankings at all in the top 15, but they're definitely in that 20 to 30 range, just outside the top 15, where they're definitely talented and definitely people that we were looking out for, especially, Bahamondes, especially. We've been looking at, everybody's been looking at him for quite a while since he debuted. So that's a good win to have. And that was not really a close fight. And what made that not such a close fight was the striking. I mean, he really mangled the face of Bahamondes in the first round. It was bleeding. It was a bit puffy and everything. There was definitely some swelling in there. Klein very much getting that striking going. And Bahamondes had a huge reach advantage and is a very good boxer. So to see Klein do that to him, being the much shorter guy as well, that is very impressive, because he actually pretty clearly, I would say, got a 10-8 in that round. So that was very impressive to see. Very technical striking, heavy power. He used to be a boxer, so he definitely has really good striking. That is something to look out for sure. That's his main thing. And the speed. The speed is very difficult to deal with, which is why Bahamondes had such an issue, is because being that much bigger than the other guy, you're going to be a little slower. So Klein used that speed and the striking to do all that damage to Bahamondes. Very fast hands and very fast kicks. So very quick all around with the striking. Interestingly enough, though, didn't really have a whole bunch of pace. I mean, he had a good pace at the start of the fight. Again, that's why he got the 10-8. But after that, really slowed down after that. Starts to back up a bit more as he slows down as well. So that could be something to look out for if we get into the second and third round, or late second and third round. That might be a factor, but we shall see. And as it stands, like I said, we don't have odds yet. I just checked this morning, like literally 2 hours ago. Still no odds, so we're just going to deal with that. And, there will be odds, of course, by Friday and Saturday. So I will have odds, and I will, of course, factor that in, of course, to the units and all of that next week. But right now, we do not have odds for this one, because this will be in a parlay. You'll see in a sec. Who is going against him? It's AJ Cunningham coming up on short notice. And I'm not liking his chances, I'm not going to lie. So I feel like this is going to be another pretty one-sided one in terms of the odds, because this guy was absolutely brutalized on the Contender Series. That fight was not even close. And it was, I think, the third time that Stephen Nguyen was on the Contender Series against, third time on the Contender Series when he was fighting against Cunningham in September, I should say. And yeah, this was not a close fight at all. One of the wild, craziest stories I've ever heard on the Contender Series is this guy's backstory. I mean, just insane stuff, where as a kid he was literally fed steroids by his dad. He was thrown out in the backyard every night, had to deal with a bunch of different animals. He was even covered with honey or something when he was outside, because the dad was trying to toughen him up by throwing him basically out in the wilderness basically at night as a kid. So I mean, toughness does not even begin to describe what this guy is. But again, brutalized on the Contender Series. This was not a close fight. And yet he's fighting here against Ludovic Klein. So you can tell maybe where I'm going to be going with this. But we'll get into it anyway. The offense, I mean, this guy throws some offense, that's for sure. Wild combos. I would say he is the definition of a brawler. Not technical at all. Will really just walk straight into danger to get the other guy, which is why he got so mangled in that Contender Series, because he never stopped walking forward and was just super offensive, really trying to get something going, but didn't work out for him there. Which, of course, is what this one is. He's very aggressive, which I would say it might even be, I maybe could have even put this as a red mark as well, because it is reckless. Like I've said borderline reckless before. I would actually maybe say that this is reckless in this case. I mean, maybe he's shored some things up because, you know, he's making his UFC debut and he's had a few months to recover and game plan and all that to get better. I mean, he wasn't expecting to go to the UFC, obviously, because he didn't get the contract and he got destroyed on the Contender Series. But still, you know, hopefully he was using that time off wisely. And maybe that aggression can help him in this fight. We don't know. But yeah. The defense, though, like I said, not good. Not good. Very bad, actually. Like I said, just straight up walking into things. Awful defense. Almost no defense, really. But one hell of a chin. My goodness. I mean, he didn't even get fully knocked out. The ref was just like, you know what? I think you've taken enough of a beating for the second round stoppage. Yeah. Fair stoppage, though. I'm not even complaining about the stoppage. It was just like, yeah, you know what? This guy is so tough that I think we're just going to call this fight because he should not be fighting anymore. This is brutal to watch. So yeah, not good defense, but my God, does he have a chin. And of course, like I said, we don't have the odds. So who am I giving the edge to? I mean, like I said, I can't even really pretend that this one is going to be close. This is a complete mismatch. That is a last-minute matchup. Klein is very clearly going to win this. I mean, it's really not even close. And I completely fucked up the animation on this one. How about that? Isn't that fun? Idiot. I fixed all of the other ones, and I was sure I did all of them right, and here we are. I fucked it up. But anyway, I think it's going to be a pretty easy KO. I mean, he almost knocked out Bahamondes. He got a 10-8 in the first round against Bahamondes. Bahamondes himself would do very nasty things to Cunningham, so I really cannot imagine this even being remotely close. Sadly, like I said, we don't have the odds, but there's the pick, and you can definitely use that later in the week when the odds come, because this really is not a close fight at all. And we move on to... yes, this is definitely one of the ones that's been on there for a while, but again, moved around the card quite a bit. It's Christian Leroy Duncan, and I believe, is it Brendason Ribeiro? I can't remember. I can't remember what his first name is, but it doesn't matter. And hey, hello, Faith Bala. Does that have anything to do with Hasbullah? I hope it does. I love Hasbullah. But anyway, we move on to starting with this one. It's Christian Leroy Duncan. What has he got? He's 9-1. The only loss that he has was a decision loss to Petrosian, which was pretty close. It was a pretty close fight. Maybe some fight IQ issues, maybe not. I don't know. It was just really close, though. His main thing is... don't know what that is. His main thing is, of course, the striking. I mean, my goodness, is the striking entertaining to watch? No, it's not to do with Hasbullah. That's too bad. My apologies if you don't like Hasbullah and you were offended by that. I like Hasbullah. But anyway. Very accurate striking. Very, very creative. I mean, doesn't even set things up with jabs and stuff. He's just throwing spinning things, flying things. I mean, this guy is wild stuff, but he's also very accurate. It's a very unusual combination. You don't normally see that. Great power. Nasty kicks. I mean, this guy, the striking is something to watch. That is for sure. The movement makes that striking even better, and great for defense as well. Very fast, moves a lot, also moves in very unique ways. This helps, like I said, with the defense as well. And it was actually pretty difficult for Armen Petrosian to deal with as well. Eventually, like I said, he didn't end up dealing with it because he got the win, but very difficult at first. The chin, though, and it's a question mark because I'm not 100% sure if his chin is bad or what is happening, but it seems like anytime that he gets hit clean, his entire style, his entire way of fighting just completely goes out the window. Like, he stops moving properly. He starts to back up a lot more. He's not really as creative with his strikes. So kind of like the entire good part of his style just falls apart when he gets hit clean. I don't know if it's a weak chin or not. I really don't. Because Armin's shot, the shot that Armin landed to make me think this, wasn't really all that hard. It wasn't anything crazy. It's not like he, well, you know, like huge shots made him stumble around. It was kind of just a jab or maybe even a straight, and then he just lost all ability to do anything. So I don't really know if his chin is bad or what's going on here, but it derailed his style for a couple of minutes. So it's something to look out for sure, especially since Ribeiro does have some power. But he's a clear favorite at -300, so clearly people have a lot of faith in him and maybe don't have a whole lot of faith in Ribeiro here. He was... Oh, whoops. I was going to recap what he had done so far. He was KO'd by Kopylov in his last fight. He got a TKO over Joseph Holmes. And then he was KO'd by Abdulrazak Al Hassan in his debut. So 2 KO losses already in the UFC. Will that trend continue? We shall see. But he definitely has power. He definitely has power to get his own KO. Swings windmills constantly. I mean, this guy is a wild man, that's for sure. Looking for that KO all the time. And when he lands, it is very hard, and it is definitely a problem. And he also has some nasty leg kicks thrown in there as well. So power personified, that is for sure for Ribeiro here. The defense, though, I mean, like I said, he's been KO'd twice in the UFC because he's a little slow, and he's also swinging pretty wild. So when you're kind of slow and you're also not very technical, throwing some wild shit, that leaves you open for some stuff pretty constantly, honestly. So the defense, not great. And that could be a real issue with this matchup, especially. The pace is also a little bit of a problem. Has very little output most of the time. He kind of fights in bursts, really. He kind of just jumps in there for, you know, a couple quick combos, some shots, and then jumps back out, and then, you know, goes back to doing what he was doing. And he moves backwards quite a bit because of this, which is another problem. Yeah, definitely a problem. Which is probably why, again, he's the dog at +210. So who's getting the edge in this one? I mean, let's be real. Like, both of these guys are definitely capable of getting a KO. Like I said, especially if we're questioning the chin of Duncan. I mean, if you get hit clean like that and you don't have a great chin, you're going to get knocked out. So could be an issue, especially if he gets hit clean and then, again, his style falls apart a little bit. He could then end up getting himself in some really tough situations, to put it lightly, that's for sure. But overall, I think I got to go with the odds on this one. I mean, you know, I just think he's kind of just much better all around. He's a much better striker. Skill, speed, defense. I think just all around, he's a much better striker. So he should be able to get the win here. I also just think he's more well-rounded as well. I mean, he could grapple a bit. He hasn't shown it that much, but from what I've seen, he can grapple a little bit as well. So maybe he can throw that in for a decision. More than likely, though, I think he's probably going to get a KO because, again, Kopylov got it. Abdulrazak Al Hassan got it. So I think he should be able to get one as well. So that's what I've got for that one. I'm sticking with Duncan on this one. Next one up, it's the bantamweights. Is it Javed? I believe it's Javed Basharat in this one. And, of course, Ayman Zahadi on the other side of this one at bantamweight, like I said. Basharat, undefeated, of course, wins over Trevin Jones, Tony Gravely, who knows, and Mateus Mendonce, who we just saw in Mexico. And did he win? Did Mendonce win? I can't remember if Mendonce won now. I genuinely can't remember if he won. I think he won, but now I honestly can't remember. Anyway, so pretty good wins and convincing wins at that. I mean, there was never really a point in any of those fights where it looked like he was going to lose. So pretty good. He's undefeated for a reason. He is, what did I say? He's undefeated for a reason. Very, very good. And it's because he's so well-rounded. I mean, he's extremely technical with the striking, very accurate. He doesn't really miss a whole lot. Maybe not the most power. I mean, he's probably not going to knock anybody out, but he's definitely very accurate and very technical. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And solid wrestling. He's got the wrestling in there as well. Seems like he's got some pretty good BJJ as well. So truly very well-rounded is Basharat. And next up, the speed. He's pretty quick, very fast strikes and great defense. So all around, pretty fast guy. And really, I would say actually his main asset, his biggest asset right here is his fight IQ. He really, like I said, does not make a whole bunch of mistakes. Neither Basharat brother makes a whole lot of mistakes. And it's how they've both stayed undefeated and how they just keep climbing up to get into the rankings at some point. Never puts himself in danger. So yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that is faithful. Me too. He is definitely one of those guys that is very reliable, and those are the people that I like to bet on, which is probably why, thanks for the hearts, by the way, and the emojis and all that. That means a lot. Thank you. That's probably why he's a minus 700. I mean, you know, he's so reliable, so well-rounded, undefeated. Makes sense. He's going to be, yeah, big favorite. Zahabi on the other side, 10-2 losses to Vince Morales, Ricardo Ramos. I can't remember if they were by knockout or not. I did know it was Elite Day, February 29th. I mean, crazy stuff. Once every 4 years. Very cool. His asset, though, is his striking, from what I've seen anyway. Very smart, accurate striking, good power for 135. He's got a couple of knockouts in there as well. But not much pace. Very low output, especially for 135. I mean, these guys throw stuff constantly. So if you can't keep up with that, that's a real problem. And he definitely has not been able to keep up the pace. That is for sure. This is a problem. Also, I feel a little bit weird talking so negatively about my Canadian brother here, but just got to keep it real. I mean, you know, this is a tough matchup. I'm not gonna lie. This is a rough one for Zahabi, I gotta say. But I mean, he does have some good fight IQ. He does coach people. He corners people. He's definitely got a mind for it, and maybe, you know, if he's kind of going outside the UFC soon, maybe, you know, we'll see him in the coaching corner more in the UFC. That would be really cool to see. We need more Canadian fighters, that's for sure. So hopefully you can coach some up to the UFC. That'd be great. But yeah, very low output. Oh yeah, what was I going to say? It doesn't make very many mistakes from what I've seen. Doesn't get hit a whole lot. Usually just much smarter than his opponents. I mean, we saw that in a couple of his last fights. But, plus 400 though, of course, because of that. But, I mean, who is going to get the win with this one? Basharat, Zahabi. I don't think it's going to be like, oh man, like Zahabi just got brutally finished. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the odds are suggesting, but I do think there's a pretty obvious winner. It's got to be Basharat on this one. He's undefeated. He's much younger. He's much more active, higher pace, higher skill all the way around. Yeah, I just don't really think it's all that close at all. And again, he is one of the most reliable people. So I think we're going to be seeing him later on in the parlays for my best bets. Just a sneak preview of that. That is Javid Basharat, I believe. And we'll move on to another one, actually, that was a last-minute one. This is Vinicius Oliveira, and I can't remember his first name. Oh, yeah, it's like Bernardo. I believe it's Bernardo Sopai. So, yeah, Oliveira was actually originally scheduled to fight Giannis Gamuri in the original matchup. And Gamuri it's actually a somewhat decent opponent. He lost to Gomi. So, decent opponent that he was scheduled to fight. Instead, he's going against Sopai. Interestingly, though, Sopai he had a fight scheduled for next week anyway. So it's not really a huge deal that he was stepping in on such short notice. He was already in shape. He was scheduled to fight next week at bantamweight. So, he was already planning on cutting weight anyway and planning to have a fight anyway. That being said, it was against somebody who is 6-5. So this is a much better opponent than he was expecting. That is for sure. So we will jump right on into that with Vinicius Oliveira. 19-3 this guy is, and got a KO on the Contender Series in September. Interesting story with two of those losses, by the way. First loss was to Christian Quinones, who we just saw fight last week. Very interesting. That was in 2018. Lost another one after that. And then the last loss that he had was actually against an undefeated Ali Taleb in UAE Warriors. And then Ali Taleb actually moved to PFL right after that. So that's a pretty good opponent. And was that a split decision? I can't remember. But it was a pretty close fight there with a pretty good opponent. Like I said, PFL has a win in the PFL, Taleb. So yeah, and that was a close fight there. Oh yeah, that's right. He did get knocked out. That's right. But he was doing pretty well before he got knocked out there. Anyway, his main thing is the striking. Huge power, clean KO with a slick combo on the Contender Series. Definitely, that was a good performance. That was one of the better ones we saw last season. Heavy kicks, super aggressive as well. Definitely the striking is what you're going to need to watch out for sure. The defense, though, I gotta say, that is the reason why he lost all three of those fights. He can swing some wild shots. Kind of causes him to get cracked a bit by the more technical strikers, which is why Taleb ended up winning. He was just more technical with it, which ended up giving him that win. Keeps his hands a little bit low sometimes again and walks forward, which is not a good combination. Great when you're trying to strike and do some damage, which he's very good at, but when you're trying to defend, not so great. Does have a good chin, though, from what I've seen, and is very tough. So, but sometimes that falls apart in the UFC, which is why it's definitely a negative. That is why I wrote that in red for sure. His size, though, he is huge. He is massive for 135. So that will definitely be a factor. He is tall, not only just big, thick, but he's also pretty tall and pretty long for 135. Just all around a very big body to deal with at 135 pounds. And he uses it very well. That is actually why he's able to walk forward and do all that kind of damage so well, is because he's so big and so long that it is just extremely difficult to deal with. And of course, because this is a last-minute fight, we don't have odds for it yet. What can you do? I can't do anything about that. I'm not a betting site. I don't have the odds yet, sadly, but yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. We don't have odds. Bernardo Sopai on the other side, 11-2. Most recently, he lost. Oh, this was the guy that lost by a split decision. Lost in a split decision on Brave, which is it's on Fight Pass, so it is definitely a slightly more well-known promotion. But before that, really other than that, I should say, has not really fought on anything well known at all. Yeah. So the striking, though, is once again his main asset. Pretty accurate strikes, okay power, nothing crazy. He's not, ripping people to shreds here, or one punch power. He's not that kind of guy, and Oliveira kind of is. So he's not really like that, but still some accurate striking. The pace, though, from what I noticed, is his problem. That's why he lost, at least in my mind. That's why he lost that fight. And it was against Francesco Nuzzi, I believe, who, I've heard of him before, so he's like, he's not like Christian Quinones, let's say, of Oliveira's record. But Nuzzi, it's somebody that's like, okay, it's maybe like an Ali Talib level, maybe even just below that. So he's kind of getting into that Bellator PFL range for sure, Francesco Nuzzi. But yeah, anyway, so he lost that fight because of his pace. He really wasn't throwing out a whole lot, and Nuzzi didn't really have a high pace either, so that's kind of saying a lot. And that wasn't even the only fight that he did that. I watched a couple of the regional ones too, and he didn't really have a whole lot of output there either. He's more of a counter striker. That's how he's winning these fights. Which brings us to the experience. Like I said, Francesco Nuzzi is kind of the only main one that he was, the only well-known name that he was kind of fighting. So, and he lost that one. And other than that, like I said, hasn't really fought anybody that we know, hasn't really fought in any promotions even that are well-known either. So the level of competition is pretty low. So that's a real concern when you're coming into the UFC, for sure. And again, we don't have the odds yet. So who's getting the edge here? I will say it's, even though what I was saying was Oliveira seems to be maybe the choice, it's definitely very, very close. You got to remember, neither one of them has made their debut. Either guy, I think either guy could get a KO or a decision. So yeah, I can't make a pick like that because, we've been burned by stuff like this before because they're making their debuts. We just don't know where they stack up against that kind of level. I will say, I'm kind of leaning towards Oliveira, but just not confident enough to be like, this is the pick 100%. Like, we're 100% going with Oliveira. I just can't say that. Especially since he gets hit so much. And it's, Sopai, I should say, also trains at All Stars, which is where Chimaev was training as well. So he's definitely got some good training partners there as well. So, really, we could see a KO or a decision from either side. There's just way too much up in the air for this fight. And again, super late notice as well. So super late notice, debut on both sides. This is all over the place. Not good for betting. So we're just going to call it even on this one. The next one up. This, I believe, is the first one on the main card. It's Eric Anders. It's Jamie Pickett, I believe it is, at middleweight. And we open up, of course, with Eric Anders. He's 1-3 in his last, but I will say that is pretty deceptive because Barrio was a decision loss, but he was doing really well in that fight. It was somewhat close, that fight. He knocked out Kyle Dawkins before that. Jun Young Park, it was a split decision loss, so that was super, super close, and we know how good Jun Young Park is. And Barrios, by the way, is good too. It's a fair loss to have, especially when it was purely because Barrio is a psycho with his cardio. And then the other loss was Andre Muniz by submission. Again, kind of another fair loss there. So I'm not really holding the record in too high regard that it's 1-3 in the last 4. It's just something you gotta take into consideration, that's for sure. His main thing from what I've seen, I mean, he is somewhat well-rounded. Like, he likes to switch it up quite a bit. But the main thing that I've noticed is he does use a lot of grappling. He pushes people into the fence quite a bit. Like, in every single fight, that's what he does. Some takedowns here and there that look pretty good. Good control, again, along the fence and on the ground and ground and pound. So he is more of that, like, I'm going to push you into the fence. I'm going to take you down. He's not going to try and submit you or anything from what I've seen. It's more of the ground and pound control, clinch control, elbows along the fence, that kind of stuff. That's what he does the best. And the pressure. I mean, that's how he does it. He walks forward constantly pushing people into the fence. That is how he gets that done. So he is very aggressive and pushing forward all the time, usually into the fence. And what we have definitely seen, especially in that fight against Barrio, is the toughness. He gets hit a lot in some of these fights and doesn't really ever react a whole lot either. So seems to be pretty tough. Always keeps going with that strategy of moving forward, pushing hard, which is very impressive, especially when you're getting a little bit older. To keep up that kind of style, very difficult to do, but he's been doing it pretty well. So that is, I'm assuming, what he will be doing again right now, which is probably why he is a convincing favorite at minus 400 over Pickett right now. And Pickett on the other side right now, 4 losses in a row. Yikes. Lost, funny enough, to Kyle Dawkins, who I just mentioned, by finish. And he also lost to Tallulah by finish. Lost to Bo Nickel by finish. I mean, that one, we'll just throw that out the window like it never happened, because he was never going to win that fight anyway. So we can just ignore the Bo Nickel fight. But yeah, finished by Dawkins, finished by Tallulah, and lost in a decision to Josh Fremd in his last fight. Yeah, his main thing, I mean, I don't like to shit on people openly here, but he doesn't have too many things that I've seen that are like, oh, okay. Really, his best asset is the striking. He's not bad when he starts to land. Fairly accurate. Not much power most of the time. Like, he hasn't really, damaged people that well in the last, especially in the last 4 that he lost. But just overall in general, that's not really, I don't know. Again, I just don't know about, I don't know. Again, because I don't like shitting on people, but I don't know. I just don't know if he can do that kind of thing from what I've seen. Lots of kicks, so he does have the kicks going for him as well. And again, fairly accurate. It's just not a whole lot of power. I don't even know if I can say he's got, we'll talk about the pace later. We'll just move on to the grappling, which has not looked great. He gets taken down or pushed into the fence by every single opponent that I've seen so far, which, as you can imagine from what I just said, is about Eric Anders, that this is definitely going to be a problem in this fight for sure. For sure. And his other problem is pressure. When somebody's pressuring forward at him, he doesn't really do well. So very low output, plus he backs up quite a bit. Doesn't do well when the other guy's moving forward and is active. So you can probably tell where this is going already. I mean, he's plus 275, it's not really looking like a great matchup for Jamie Pickett here. I mean, even based on the fact that they both fought Kyle Dawkins, Pickett got submitted, and not only did Eric Anders knock him out, but he also actually beat him in a grappling match. So just in every single facet of MMA, Eric Anders is better than Kyle Dawkins, and Jamie Pickett got finished. So to me, I think that really kind of just says all you need to know. I mean, it's somewhat close. Neither guy is like, oh my God, this guy's so good. It's not like he's fighting Bo Nickel again. Like, let's be real. But, yeah. So neither guy is really like, oh man, he's doing so well. He's so good. He's going to be in the top 15 soon. Like, nobody's saying that about either one of these guys. So it is close and closer than minus 400. But, I mean, you still got to go with Eric Anders because Jamie Pickett just has not shown a whole lot. And he hasn't even seen, I'm not trying to say that he didn't care. But there wasn't a whole lot of effort put into some of those performances for at least a couple rounds here and there, especially. So I got to imagine that Anders is going to win because he definitely fights hard all the time. He's pretty well-rounded. He's got the experience. He's got the pace. He's a lot tougher as well. So if Pickett really does start to land a little bit, I honestly think Anders is going to push through that and flip it around with his grappling and just win anyway. So I'm going with Anders for sure on this one. Moving on, it is a pretty exciting one. I gotta say, this is one I'm looking forward to because there's not a whole lot on this card that is interesting. This is not one of the better cards. I would say this is confidently the worst card of the year so far, and it's really not even close. But yeah, Schnell, exciting guy, that's for sure. He got knocked out by Nicolau in the last one. Almost KO'd by Sumudarji before that. That was that maybe fight of the year. I mean, it was definitely top 5 fight of the year, top 5 fights of the year. Wow. I think it was last year. Maybe it was the year before. But yeah, that was the one in, I believe it was New Jersey. Insane fight. He gets almost finished in the first round by or maybe it was even the second round by Sumudarji. Oh, it was the second round. Best round of the year for sure, I think, for that year, was that second round because he almost gets finished and then somehow reverses the whole thing on Sumudarji, then drops him. Schnell gets dropped again, back and forth. They both lock in some sub attempts. Schnell reverses him, ends up submitting him, literally puts him to sleep in the octagon with a submission. Insane stuff. The scenes, as they say. Absolutely insane stuff. Daniel Cormier screaming his head off, losing it. You gotta love it when Cormier gets so excited because, he watches a lot of fights. So let's be real, a lot of these guys don't get super excited anymore. But I mean, that fight had everybody on their feet. Insane. But anyway, yeah, and then he ended up getting submitted by Royval in the first round. Oh, it was actually before that fight, ended up getting submitted by Royval. Very aggressive guy, always trying to walk forward and throw, and he's dangerous when people let him work. Yeah. I pressed the button, nothing happened. There we go. The defense, though, as you would imagine, if you get finished in 2 out of the 3 fights, and that third fight, you also basically get finished, but somehow fight back and win. The defense is obviously a problem if you're getting finished like that constantly and dropped like that quite a bit. I mean, he got dropped quite a few times in his last few fights. Nicolau and Sumudarji especially dropped him a few times. And he also actually got reversed by Sumudarji. And Sumudarji, not really much of a wrestler that I've seen anyway, so that's concerning as well. So just defense all around, not the best. And the speed, honestly. And maybe this is just more of an age thing now that he's getting slightly older. Not very fast, especially for this weight class, because this weight class is very fast. These guys, especially the younger guys, are very quick. So it's a problem. It is a problem when you start to get older and cannot keep up anymore. His reactions are just kind of slow. And again, that plays into the defense as well, because his reactions to kind of block things and move out of the way, not as fast as it should be to hold up with anybody in the top 15 anymore, to be honest. Yeah, again, this is flyweight. I mean, these guys are quick. So you got to keep up. Which is why he's at plus 250. you know? Yeah. On the other side, it's Usyk. What a guy. What a guy. I would say probably very easily could have been Rookie of the Year last year in my mind. I mean, he beat the ranked Dvorak in his debut, beat Alessandro Costa after that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that, where somebody beats a ranked opponent in his debut. I don't know if I've ever seen that. So very, very impressive stuff from Usyk last year. And honestly, just it wasn't even luck either. It wasn't even like, he got lucky with a weird finish or a weird decision. Honestly, he just dominated all 3 rounds. He just won. He looked like he was the ranked guy in that fight. That is how good he looked, which is crazy. Crazy to look that good in your debut. And then he followed it up, like I said, with a win over Alessandro Costa after that. Looked great in that fight, too. I'm very impressed by Usyk. I really am. Very well-rounded, which you have to be at flyweight to be in the top 15. You got to be super well-rounded. Oops, skipped up a part there. Very technical, accurate striking, like really not making any mistakes. He kind of looks a little bit like Izzy when he's striking, because he's kind of walking forward a little bit, keeping it super close and everything. Very impressive to watch. Then and has some good power. I mean, he dropped Alessandro Costa with his punches. That's impressive as it is. I mean, yeah. So he's got the power. He's got the striking technique. Very technical, and he's also got great wrestling, and fantastic BJJ, because he's got some nasty finishes in there, nasty submission finishes in Eternal MMA. So in Australia, that's where he's from. So yeah, and just really honestly all the way around, he's good everywhere, good offensively and defensively. I am very, very impressed with what I've seen from Usyk. That is for sure. And he's also pretty aggressive. It does get him into some troubles though, but in general, it definitely helps him quite a bit. Walking forward constantly, not always throwing a lot, which is what I was kind of getting at, but still moving forward, which is a problem, because if you're not throwing and you're moving forward, then they're going to throw, and then you're walking right into their punches, which at flyweight, maybe they're not going to knock you out because flyweight's, there's not a whole lot of knockouts going on, but you're pushing it when you're walking forward like that, which is what I was going to say. He did get hit a couple of times by Dvorak and Costa, but because he has such a good chin, it really didn't seem to affect him at all, and he still won convincingly both of those fights. And it's probably because of this, because of his fight IQ. Fantastic fight IQ, truly. I mean, he was a champion in Australia for a few fights. I mean, this guy has some championship experience, 5-round fight experience. He's very, very smart, very, very good, very, very well-rounded. Doesn't really make a whole lot of mistakes offensively or defensively. Like I said, it's really just that sometimes he gets a little too aggressive and then kind of walks into a couple things. But again, because he's so smart and because he's so well-rounded, he doesn't usually get hit super clean. And that was the end of that sentence. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, so looking real, real good, which is, of course, why he's a favorite at minus 350. So who's getting the edge in this one? The button didn't work. Who's getting in the edge in this one? I think it's probably pretty clear where I'm going with that already. I mean, Schnell could make it a brawl and maybe get a decision, maybe a finish somehow. But to be honest, I think it's really a lot more likely that Usyk gets a finish or a decision. So I got to go with Usyk on this one. He's younger. He's a lot more technical. He's a lot more well-rounded. And he's also way more dangerous. So he really, really should come home with the win on this one. Next up, it's Umar. Finally, Umar returns. And Almakhan, I forgot his name for a second and it's a little far away. Almakhan on the other side, making his debut. That's a tough spot to make a debut, I'm not going to lie. That's a rough way to make your debut. Umar 16-0. He finished Morozov, finished Kelleher, finished Barcelos, and a decision over Manis, which was a little surprising, but maybe that's just because Manis is so tough. Yeah, insane striking. That is definitely, well, I mean, he's pretty well-rounded, which is why I wrote that, but the striking, the kicks, holy shit, the kick, he might have some of the best kicks I've ever seen. I mean, he really does just whip them up there like a jab. It is crazy to watch. Like, you don't even see it. It's just, he throws it so fast. It's like, whoa. He just slapped him in the face with his foot. That's insane. Great power, very accurate. And then obviously he's Dagestani, so he's got the wrestling, of course. And, you know, great submissions offensively. So yeah, of course, he's really good. Of course, he's super well-rounded and undefeated. That's why he's undefeated. Very fast. I mean, what can't this guy do? He's super fast all around, especially with the kicks, of course. Offense, defense, grappling, striking, speed everywhere. Super well-rounded everywhere. I mean, he's just a beast. He really is. I've never seen him slow down yet. That hasn't happened yet. And everything he does is dangerous. Always looking for a finish. So this guy, I mean, he's obviously the real deal. He's Umar, and he is minus 1,200. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit shocked that it was that high, but I guess, you know, other guy making his debut. But you can't forget that the other guy is 17-1. Like, his opponent is pretty good this time as well. But, you know, I completely understand. Umar's undefeated. He's insanely talented. So I understand the odds. But we'll get into this guy. I mean, Almakhan, he's 17-1. 17-1. And his only loss is a submission loss in 2020. Yes, he's mostly been fighting on the regional scene. But still, 17-1 is not something to sniff at, that's for sure. And he's got one fight in UAE Warriors. So like I said, mostly on the regional scene, and then one fight on the UAE Warriors, which is definitely one of the bigger ones. He's also pretty well-rounded, though. I was impressed when I was watching his tape. I really was. Super slick, accurate, powerful striking, great, heavy wrestling. And good BJJ defense. He had to put the defense to the test there, and it worked out pretty well. I'm impressed. I really do think that we're going to be seeing this guy do some big things. It's just a shame, obviously, that this is his debut against Umar, because if you're making your debut against Umar, let's be real, it's probably not going to go well for you. So I'm sure he's going to get a better fight, a better matchup after this, leading, you know, in the future of his UFC career. But this is probably going to be a rough one. The speed, he's also pretty fast. Again, very fast. Fast strikes, very fast defense. I was impressed all around with that. I mean, obviously, though, his one knock is the experience, of course. Making his UFC debut. And like I said, there were a couple of good-looking opponents on there, but kind of unclear how strong his opponents and his, you know, his strength of schedule, how strong his schedule has been, with the fact that he's really only been on UAE Warriors the one time, and then not a whole lot of other experience outside that. So that's obviously a concern, and will probably be his downfall considering who he's fighting this week, which is, again, why he's at plus 550, of course. So who am I giving the edge? I mean, I'll be real. Like, when you actually watch the tape, it's kind of hard to tell who's going to win, because they are actually both really good. But obviously, this is Umar's fight to lose. I mean, he clearly should win this fight. So I'm obviously going to go with him. I'm not going to fuck around here. Obviously, I think Umar's going to win. He's easily a top 10 talent, and he's pretty good all the way around. I honestly haven't seen any weaknesses yet. And even if he does make some mistakes, doesn't take him seriously or something, or, you know, Beksat, that's his name, by the way, Beksat Almakhan, you know, even if he makes this fight a lot tougher than people will think it is, I I still can't see Umar losing. He's definitely not going to get finished. And I just can't see him losing a decision because he's too smart. He's got the cardio. He's got the skill. I just can't see him losing a decision either. But this really could go to a decision. I would not be completely shocked by that. I really would not be shocked by that. Because this guy is good. They're both very good. Moving on. It is the return of Alex Perez and Mohamed Mokaev on the other side at flyweight, trying to move up those rankings, maybe even trying to get a title shot. Possibly. I could see that. They're looking for a main event. Pantoja, Mokaev. We could see it. We could see it. I wouldn't be mad at it. I honestly would not be mad at that. I would like to see that. I don't think Mokaev has a chance, but I still want to see it. First up, it's Perez, though. Less than 4 minutes of cage time since mid-2020. That is a concern. That is a huge problem. Less than 4 minutes of cage time. And not only is it less than 4 minutes of cage time, it is losses by, with 4 minutes of cage time. Loss to Pantoja, insane submission. That right there was the moment that I knew, and I said it too. I believe I actually said it on stream too. I was like, I honestly think Pantoja is going to be the champion. And I think I really do think he's the best. And at that point, it was Figgy who had the belt. And even then, I said, this guy this could be the guy to beat Figgy. Little did I know that Moreno was going to be the guy to beat Figgy, and then Pantoja I was right, going to be the guy to end up getting the belt. So yeah, that was the fight that clued me into how good Pantoja actually is. Insane submission. And just before that, funny enough, was a title shot against Figgy in 2020, and that is where he lost by submission once again. So has not been doing well in the submission games recently, that's for sure. And almost, by the way, crazy stat here, almost every single one of his fights, win or loss, ended in the first round. So this truly is set up for Mokaev to get a first round submission win. You can tell what they're trying to do. Because if he gets that first round submission wins, and it's spectacular, I do think that we see a title shot. Pantoja, Mokaev, UFC 301. I could very easily see that. And they're setting it up. They are setting it up to make it happen. But anyway, we'll jump into the matchup right here. Striking. He does have some dangerous striking. He really does. He may have lost some speed in the last few years, so maybe that's a problem. But he's definitely still dangerous if you're not being careful. Mokaev usually pretty careful, so maybe it doesn't come into play here. We don't know. Again, he's had less than 4 minutes of cage time in the last 4 years, so who knows how he's going to show up. We really have no idea. Again, the BJJ, though, that's got to be talked about, obviously. If you've been submitted like that, he's been submitted 5 times. 5. No less than 5 times in his career, and very, very quickly by Figgy and Pantoja. And yeah, of course, Figueiredo, Pantoja, probably 2 of the best submission artists in flyweight history. I mean, you got Demetrius Johnson on there, who's obviously probably the best. But, that's the top 3 for sure. I don't think there's even a conversation about that. Like, those are very clearly the 3 best in UFC history. So he lost to 2 of them. But again, he lost to 3 other guys. He was submitted by 3 other guys as well. So that is definitely a problem, especially when Mokaev has submissions. Activity. Again, 4 minutes of cage time in the last 4 years. That's not good. That's not what you want to see at all. Especially when you are 8 years older than the guy that you're fighting against, and when the other guy has been pretty active. Mokaev has been pretty active, even though he was actually injured a little bit by that nasty submission defense in that one fight where he had his leg ripped apart. Still very active, still way more active than Perez. So That's not a good sign when you're 8 years older and you've been way less active. That's a problem, which is why the odds are plus 250 right now, because it's not looking good. Mokaev, on the other hand, undefeated, more than 30 fights undefeated if you include amateur. That is crazy. Crazy. Undefeated over 30 fights, including amateur. That is wild, wild stuff. Oh, whoops. Now I forgot I had already pressed the button. The grappling obviously is what you want to watch out for. I mean, insane wrestling in BJJ, offense and defense. It's been a problem for every single guy he's gone against so far. And he's either been able to submit his opponents or just dominate them to a decision. I mean, it really... I'm not going to say it hasn't been close, because there were a couple of times where he got stuck in some bad submissions. And like I said, got his leg torn apart by that one submission attempt. But yeah, the grappling is pretty fucking good. It's really good. And then the speed, very fast striking offense and defense, which helps him a lot, especially in this matchup as well. And very fast wrestling, just speed all around. He shoots in out of nowhere really fast. And then, of course, cuts the corners really fast as well, trying to get, change the angles to get the takedown very, very fast. And he's young. I mean, that's why. He's really young, so that helps his speed as well. And he's tough. I mean, like I said, those submission attempts, especially that one, never tapped, just gritted through it and ended up getting a submission himself. I mean, this guy is also very, very tough. It's a dangerous combination, let's be real. When you're that tough, that talented, and fast, and young, undefeated, super well-rounded, I mean, like, yeah, Mokaev is the real deal. Which is what I was saying about, I'd like to see the title shot, I really would. Minus 350, of course. So who's getting the edge? I mean, again, you can obviously tell where I'm going with this already. I do think that this has the potential to be closer than people think. I mean, again, Perez, he does have striking, he does have knockout power, and we haven't seen Mokaev really go against a great striker yet. We just haven't seen that. Yeah, so this really could be... Perez could get a KO here. I could see that. And, I mean, obviously, I could also see Mokaev getting a sub or a decision. But Perez does have an outside chance at a KO. I'm not completely writing that off. But I still have to go with Mokaev. I mean, there's just way too many things going in his favor. Again, he's 8 years younger, undefeated, well-rounded. The wrestling game, the fact that Perez has been submitted 5 times. This guy has amazing submissions. I mean, how do you not pick Mokaev in this kind of matchup, especially? So, yeah, I think that is the very clear choice in this one. Next one up, it's the co-main event. We're almost there, folks, even though I'm starting to lose it again. Oh, we're actually, like, blowing through this card right now. We're going really fast. I love it. Because normally, well, for the last few anyway, we've been staying strong at about, like, 2 hours, 2:15, 2.5. Oh, shit. I'm getting a little tired now, too. Oh, man. Take a little break. But no, yeah, usually, I mean, we've been struggling to keep this under like 2 hours and 15 or so, but we're already an hour and a half in. We're in the co-main. I know this is a shorter card, so that's probably why, but still, we're getting in the hang of this PowerPoint system. Or I should say Keynote, because I'm on a Mac. So this is actually through Keynote, by the way, if anybody was wondering. Probably nobody's going to see that anyway, but this is on Keynote if you were curious. Yeah, so the co-main, Vitor Petrino and Tyson Pedro. It's light heavyweight. We'll open up with Vitor Petrino, the undefeated Vitor Petrino. Insane power. Oh, yeah. I didn't even give him an opening. He's undefeated. That's all you need to know. Undefeated, been doing really well, gotten some KOs, some subs. Pretty good stuff. And like I said, well-rounded. That's what I was just going to open with. Insane power and pretty accurate from what I've seen. He knocked out Bukauskas with one punch. That was quite a knockout, I gotta say. That was a good one. I watched it yesterday again, just as a refresher. Amazing one-punch KO there. Crazy stuff. He's got insane, not insane wrestling, but heavy wrestling. And because he's so big, it's a real issue for people. And super slick BJJ. Again, normally guys that are this big, they don't necessarily always have the wrestling. It's light heavyweight. You don't normally see that. And you don't normally see a whole lot of submission guys this heavy as well. It's really just kind of Almeida at one, Aspinall, I guess, too. But there's not a whole lot of other guys that can do that. So yeah, pretty impressive for a big guy, that's for sure. The pace, though, because he's so big and he clearly cuts a lot of weight, the pace is a little low. He's not always putting a whole bunch out there. What was I going to say here in the notes? Oh yeah, he kind of just slows down after a while too. But he does slow other people down too, because I'm not saying people are scared of him by any means. Maybe they are a little bit. But because he's so big and he's so well-rounded, it kind of slows everybody else down, which kind of means that his slow pace isn't really that bad, because he kind of slows everybody else's pace down with him. So it's not a huge problem, but if somebody were to just, do their own pace and kind of just say, fuck what he does, I'm just going to do my own thing, could be a little bit of a problem, because he probably will not be able to keep up with that kind of a pace. But that being said, again, look at this guy. Look at this guy. He is an absolute beast. I mean, he is huge. He is huge. Everything is powerful. The striking, the wrestling, everything is powerful. And I will say, he doesn't seem to have cardio issues. So even though I said that the pace is a bit of a problem, I've never actually seen him have cardio issues. So I think it's kind of just how he fights, that he's just keeps a low pace and then just keeps the cardio going. And if somebody chooses to, oh my God, did we just disconnect there for a while? I'll say the last little bit just in case we disconnected there. That he's a beast. Doesn't seem to slow. Had some rough losses in there. So he's kind of one of those guys where it's like, is he really good? Is he not good? I can't really tell. And I think this is going to be one of those matchups where we actually find out for sure how good is Tyson Pedro here. The striking, though, is obviously his best asset. He's from City Kickboxing, Hooker, Adesanya, Ulberg, all of those guys. So very talented group. And he does have that style. He is very technical. He is accurate. He does have good power. But, especially compared to those other guys, he has an even lower output than maybe even Petrino. He has a very low output. Very, very low. And it wasn't just the last fight. It's every fight that I saw him do. So like the last 3 or 4, very low output from him. And the cardio, which is baffling, because I don't know how you could have a low output and also have terrible cardio, but that's kind of where we've landed on him in the last 2 fights, which is why we really need to see some changes in this fight, or else it's like, okay, Tyson Pedro's probably getting cut from the UFC here if he doesn't at least do well. But yeah, which again, that's probably why he's the underdog at plus 225. So who's getting the edge here? I mean, they both fought Modestas Bukauskas. Pedro lost a decision, and if I'm being real, never really had any great moments other than a takedown. He had a takedown in the first round, but that was it. He never really showed a whole lot else. And Petrino knocked him out in 2 rounds, and it was somewhat close, but then he just brutally knocked him out with 1 punch. So pretty impressive stuff from Petrino. And that already, you can kind of tell where I'm leaning towards this. I mean, I think maybe Pedro can get a wild KO in there. You know, Petrino starts to make some mistakes, doesn't take Pedro seriously. He counters, gets a KO. Maybe he can avoid the power punches and get a decision win somehow based on activity. But I don't know. I think it's way more likely that Petrino is going to KO him brutally, or maybe even just lay on top of him for a decision. So I'm going with Petrino on this one. And I fucked up the animations on that one too. That's fun. Petrino is just a beast. I mean, too much power, too much wrestling, I think, for Pedro. I don't really think that he's going to be able to deal with it. So I'm going with Petrino on this one. And I don't know if you noticed, by the way, I'm giving out a lot of edges for this card, which is a small card. It's 11 fights, and I'm giving out, I believe, 8 edges, 8 or 9, which again could be a mistake. Could be a mistake here for me. But a lot of these are like wildly like one-sided, especially even in terms of the odds. I mean, there's minus 400, minus 500, minus 1200, minus 700. This card is extremely slanted towards some favorites here, that's for sure. And that brings us now to the main event of the evening. It's Rosenstrike. It is Shamil Agagiev on the other side. It's the heavyweight main event. And it's a very exciting one. I gotta say, I had a hard time picking this one. I really did. Yeah, I really had a hard time picking this one. Rosenstrike. Let's go through what he's been doing recently. Undefeated. By the way, he was undefeated before that Francis Ngannou fight. Then he got knocked out in 20 seconds, which was the first time I had ever seen Francis Ngannou fight. And I was like, holy shit. That was, at that point, I think that was the craziest KO I had ever seen. And it was like just after I had turned the TV on. I just turned the TV on, and then that was the first fight that came up. And then that happened, and I was like, what the fuck? That was insane. But anyway, enough about that. He beat JDS, Junior Dos Santos, and Augusto Sakai, and Chris Daukaus. I believe those were all finishes as well. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think they were. Or maybe 2 of them were. But then he also lost to Gon, he lost to Blades, he lost to Volkov, and he most recently, I believe, lost to Jailton Almeida. Obviously, he was a kickboxer, so his main thing is the striking, huge power, and pretty fast hands for heavyweight. That, of course, would be due to the Glory kickboxing experience. The wrestling, though, is an issue. He has been taken down quite a bit by the grapplers in the division. So, you know, that would be Blades. I think did Gon even get a takedown in there? Almeida, obviously. I think there were a couple other people that took him down pretty easily as well. Does have a hard time with the wrestling. And the defense, honestly, is where it comes down to, just all around. Striking defense and wrestling defense. He's been getting hit and finished a lot recently. And again, like I said, takedown defense, submission defense. He's been submitted here and there too. So all around the defense, bit of an issue. But he's a slight underdog, plus 125. And that's probably because the next guy, Shamil Agagiev, a bit of a mystery. A bit of a mystery. We really do not know how good this guy is. He is undefeated, but he's only, I believe, had 2 fights in the UFC. Maybe even just, it might have just been the 1 fight. And that was against Martin Budai. And that was it. So we really don't actually know how good he is at all. So I definitely see why these odds are so close. Budai, by the way, one of the most dangerous strikers who's unranked, I think, because there's not a whole lot of great talent outside of the top 15 at heavyweight. Budai is kind of one of those guys where it's like, okay, I don't know if you're going to be making the top 15, but you're still dangerous for sure and somebody to watch out for. And honestly, Gaziev kind of just walked through him. Like, it really was not even difficult. It seemed like he walked him down the whole time, pieced him up. It wasn't even a one-punch knockout. He just pieced him up by hitting him like 20, 30 times, dropped him a couple of times, stumbled him all over the place. I mean, it really just was not close until he couldn't take it anymore and the ref stopped it. And a pretty high pace, I gotta say, for heavyweight. And that's maybe why... Oh, the boxing is what I should have said. That was his boxing. He doesn't really have kicks, really just the hands. And of course, he is Dagestani, so we know he also has the wrestling as well. He does have some good wrestling. He does have some good submissions. But the boxing is also very, very dangerous. The interesting part about it, though, and that's why I put a question mark on this, is the cardio. Because the broadcasters kept talking about his cardio. I personally didn't really see a whole lot of problems, but they kept mentioning it, so maybe they saw something that I didn't. I didn't think it was that bad. I don't really know, but I mean, he's undefeated, so, and he does have a decision win in there. So I don't know if his cardio is bad or not, but if they say it is, I've got to at least write it down there. And I mean, maybe he did slow down a bit in the last fight against Budai, but he still got a KO. And he also really kept a super high pace for that first round. So it would even kind of make sense that he slowed down a little bit during that fight. So I don't really know if he has bad cardio or not. I'm just kind of going with what they're saying. And maybe he does gas himself out if he can't get a finish in the first round or second round against Rosenstrike. Maybe he does have bad cardio. I don't know, but I have not seen that on tape yet. So I've got to keep the question mark in there. And he's at minus 163, so he is a slight favorite right now as it stands. As it stands right now. So who am I giving the edge? I gotta be honest, if this were not the main event, I would have just called this even and called it a night. But I made a promise to myself after the first week. I was like, it's kind of boring that I said that the main event was even. So I've made a promise to myself that I will always, always give a pick for the main event. I have to make a pick for the main event. So that means I will be making a pick here. And just so you know from now on, if it's a main event, I will be giving an edge every single time. Even if, like this one, I do think that it's very, very close. So, that being said, who do I think is going to get it? Who is going to get the edge? Rosenstrike could get a KO here. Again, we don't know how good Gaziev is defensively. We just haven't seen him fight enough yet. Especially after 2 rounds. Nobody knows how he's going to be against somebody this good 2 rounds in. We literally have no idea. And he has slowed down before. So does he just slow down and then fall apart? Is he going to get knocked out because he slows down too much? Or is he going to get just outpointed to a decision because he gets slowed down too much? We just don't know. Gaziev could also just wrestle him to win a few rounds. He wins 3 rounds with the wrestling, with the control, gets the decision win, and that's it. Or he could maybe even get a TKO. He could get a TKO on the ground, gets some takedowns, gets a submission maybe. Or he could also just get a TKO or a KO on the feet, because he has done that quite a few times now. He does have some power. He does have fast hands. So I could also see him doing that as well, which is why I'm saying, I'm really 55-45, maybe 60-40 on this. And that is in favor of Gaziev. You got to go with Gaziev on this one, just because of the well-rounded skill set alone. I have to go with him because we've seen Rosenstrike struggle with the wrestling. We've seen Rosenstrike get subbed. That's the direction that I'm going in. That's what I've settled on. Like I said, I do think this is very close, but ultimately, I got to give a pick, and that's Gaziev. Oh, and I did have another point here too, which is that Rosenstrike might actually focus too much on the wrestling of Gaziev, so he's focusing too much on shutting down takedowns and looking for takedowns and all that he then makes a mistake and gets beat with the hands. Because we've seen that before. They're looking for the takedown. Is he gonna shoot? Is he not? And then they get knocked out. I could very much easily see that happening in this fight. So that's another concern as well. Or, or maybe he's just still not that great at wrestling and then he just gets taken down and submitted. There's also a potential of that too. There's just way more ways for Gaziev to win. I still think it's like 60-40. I'm super on the fence about it, but I gotta make the pick and I'm going with Gaziev on this one. And that is it, of course, for the main event. So we'll go through a quick recap of who's getting the edge this week. I don't even remember how many I gave out. Like I said, I think it's either 8 or 9. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll count through and look through as we go. The first one is, I didn't see. This is what I mean. I don't think I had a chance to actually fix the order of how these show up. Maybe I did actually. I can't remember. Because again, this card changed so much that I had to move things around, retype them out, just move them around constantly. So there might be a couple mistakes here. I don't think so though. I think I fixed everything. But anyway, so Klein. I mean, the late notice for AJ Cunningham, especially when Cunningham got obliterated on the Contender Series, you gotta go with Klein on this one. I mean, it's really not even close. Duncan, Christian Leroy Duncan, I think he's a better striker. I think he's he's just more well-rounded in general. And he has the power. I do think that he can get a finish in this one as well. So that's the first two. Then we got Basharat, of course. I mean, one of those rock-solid guys, just always consistently very, very good, very smart fight IQ-wise. Just one of those reliable picks. Then we've got Anders. Should be able to win that as well, I would hope. Pickett just really doesn't have a whole lot of output. He hasn't really been super dangerous either, so I think just Anders being aggressive and tough and well-rounded, I think he should be able to win this pretty easily. Then we go on again. I believe this is on the main card now. We've got Urseg. This is actually pretty similar to that last one. I just don't think Schnell is as well-rounded. And he's been having some real problems. He's been getting finished over and over again. He keeps getting hit a lot. And Urseg is extremely accurate. He's extremely smart. He's also got the submissions in there. And Schnell has been submitted as well. So just all around, again, Urseg seems like the much better choice. Then you got the return of Umar. I mean, again, Bekzat is good. I do think that Bekzat Al-Makhan is good. But when you're going against a top 10 talent in your debut, and it's Umar Nurmagomedov, I'm not going to be picking you. I'm going to be picking Umar probably every single time. So, yeah. No other explanation needed there. Then we've got Mokaev. This one is a little bit closer because we don't really know how Perez is going to show up. But I still think, I mean, just the submission, like, Perez has been submitted 5 times already. You know, Mokaev is a submission machine. He's a wrestling machine. I think he should be able to dominate, at least dominate to a decision, and probably get a submission win in there because it's just not a good style matchup for Perez. And hopefully get a title shot. That would be great. So we got Mokaev, and then we're going now, that's 7. Yeah, so that we do have 9. So yeah, co-main event, Petrino. Again, just seems better all around. And he's undefeated as well, just like Umar. Actually, there's quite a few very similar situations on this card. Basharat, Umar, Petrino, Gaziev. They're all undefeated, and they're all extremely good. Well, Gaziev, we're not sure yet, but everybody else for sure is good. And Petrino seems to be good as well. Pedro has been struggling. He keeps getting finished as well. Well, actually, has he been keeping? Yeah, I think he's been finished a couple of times. Not super high on the pace. So just overall, seems like Petrino is the much easier choice to get the win. And then, of course, in the main event, like I said, I would not have given out the edge on this one, but because it's the main event, had to give one out, and I went with Gaziev because he's just more well-rounded. He's undefeated. He's dangerous everywhere. I think it's going to be a problem for Rosenstrike, so had to go with Gaziev, and that is it. That is it for the edge. So those are the people who I think are going to win. But we're not done yet, folks. It's the best bets of the week for UFC Vegas 87. Had to think about the number there. There's so many at this point. Well, there's 87 of them. So we'll jump right on into the best bets. And that, of course, always starts with the triple play. This is where I give my, well, 3 of the picks that I gave the edge to. I put them in a parlay and see what happens. And so far, we've been doing fairly well. But yeah, we'll open up with that. The first pick it's Umar, our buddy Umar Nurmagomedov, minus 1,200. We're throwing him in there. Not great odds, but hey, we're just trying to get some wins here. Just racking up those dubs. That's it. Next up, it is Ludovit Klein. Again, we don't have the odds yet. That was not up on the site. I checked a few hours ago. It was not up. So we actually don't have odds for this parlay because of that. But yeah, I'm just giving you the picks anyway. Because again, you can do them yourself. You'll get your own odds. And then I will, of course, have odds for this whenever they come out for Klein. But that's the pick. And we're going to round that out with Urseg on the end of it, minus 350. If you put them all together, oh yeah, right. If you put that all together, we still don't know the odds. But we're going to be putting 1 unit on it. We do that every single time. That is the triple play. Moving on to the Grand Slam. Should I have recapped that? I probably should recap why, just in case people weren't watching the rest of it. You pick Umar, of course, because Beksat's making his debut. I do think it's closer than minus 1,200, but you can't pick against Umar. He's a top 10 guy. Beksat's making his debut. You would just be silly to go against Umar in that one. Klein, AJ Cunningham is coming in on super short notice. He lost on the Contender Series, and brutally, by the way. So Klein should be able to easily win this. And Urseg is just better than Schnell. He's younger, he's better, more well-rounded, he's more technical. He should be able to win this pretty easily as well. Thought I would give the description just in case you hadn't seen it. So moving on to the Grand Slam, and my throat is messed up beyond belief now. It's actually starting to hurt now. Ouchie. This is where I give the 4 fighters. I put 4 fighters in the parlay. It's the Grand Slam, and shockingly, we do better at the 4 legs than the 3 legs. So maybe this is the one you want to pay attention to. I don't know. Pay attention to all of them, but we do usually do even better on the Grand Slams. I don't know how, but it happens. And that opens up with, again, I can never remember it. I think it's Javid Basharat, minus 700. That's how we're opening this up. I mean, Ayman Zahabi, he's not that great, and Basharat is super, super consistently good. So I gotta go with Basharat on this one, minus 700. We follow that up once again with Umar Nurmagomedov, minus 1,200. Already went through that in the last one. Mokaev, minus 350. Perez just, like I said, 4 minutes of cage time since 2020. That's not good. And he's way older than Mokaev. He's been submitted 5 times. It just seems like this is set up for Mokaev to potentially get a title shot for UFC 301. I would love to see that. If he can get a first round finish here, I think we might actually see that, and I would love it. I would love it. So I'm going with Mokaev minus 350. And we're rounding that out with the co-main event. It's Vitor Petrino, another undefeated guy. Are all of these guys undefeated? They are. Holy shit, I actually just noticed that. All 4 of these guys undefeated. Unbelievable. Yeah. So another undefeated guy, minus 334. He's huge. He's got knockout power. He's got wrestling. He's got jiu-jitsu. Tyson Pedro hasn't looked consistently that great. Keeps a lower output. I think Petrino wins this one as well. Yeah, and we do have the odds for this one. These are all 4 of the guys: Basharat, Umar, Mokaev, Petrino, and the odds end up being a measly plus 106. I'm not going to lie, not the best odds we've ever had, but when you've got 4 fairly significant favorites, that kind of is what happens. But it's still plus money, folks. It's still plus money. We're still going to rake in some green when we win. When we win, we will get some green here. And that is always half a unit. I am considering bumping that up to 1 unit just for this card, but no, never mind. I'll stick to half a unit. We'll keep it like that, just to keep it the same for now. But that is it for the parlays. There's 2 last bets. The first one is the top dog, my favorite underdog of the week, the best looking underdog for me this week. It's the first fight of the night. It's Loik Radzhabov, plus 130. I said this earlier. If you want to see the reasoning, you can go back and check what I was talking about. But for me, it's a very, very close fight. And, oh yeah, it's Al Salwati he's fighting. I had to think of who he was fighting for a second. Al Salwati's making his debut. We haven't really seen him go against anybody this good yet. Loik Radzhabov was in the PFL. He beat Chris Wade. He has some good wins in the PFL. I mean, really, I think he's really only an underdog because he lost in the UFC already. But it was Mateusz Rambeszki, who is an absolute wrecking ball. So I don't think we should hold that against him. So I don't know. I think this is one of the better ones. One of the ones that has a much better chance this time. And I mean, let's be real. On this card, there are a significant number of massive, massive favorites. So really, the only 2 guys that I had a choice of on this entire card were either I was going to pick Rosenstrike in the main event because he was the underdog, or I was going to pick Radzhabov. And to me, I think Radzhabov has a much better chance of winning than Rosenstrike, so I'm going with that. Plus 130. That is the top dog of the week. And then, of course, yeah, with a 1 unit on it, as always. That is always the same thing. The sniper pick, the best pick of the week, the person who I am most confident in, who I will go to war for, who I will bet my entire house on every single time. The sniper pick, in this case, I told you this guy is rock solid gets. Both of these brothers are. It's Javid Basharat. So I did get it right earlier. It's Javid Basharat, not Farid. Minus 700. I gotta put it all on this guy. It's 7 units. For the sniper picks, we always go all out. And it works. It's the system works. What can I say? Because these sniper picks, are people that I have genuinely a 90-95% confidence rating in every single time. And it's why we win so many of them. We're 12-4 now. And to be honest, I think that's even bad because there were a couple of sniper picks in there that I probably shouldn't have made. I'm staying away from doing that anymore. I'm not going to get cute with it, picking people that I think are going to win anyway just because they have better odds. I'm not doing that anymore. We're sticking with my most confident pick no matter what the odds are. and we are going to deal with those odds in the best way we can, which is putting 7 units down on minus 700, which means when we win, we get 1 unit back, and that'll cover, well, it'll cover like the top dog if we lose, you know, stuff like that. It just ends up being, well, it ends up being great. I mean, we've got a working system, so don't question it. But anyway, so let's hope to keep the wins going. Like I said, we were 12-4 with the sniper picks. We're on a 4-week winning streak. We're slowly getting all the categories into the green. We're not quite there. The sniper pick is slightly in the red. The triple play is slightly in the red if you want to go look at the recap earlier of last week. But yeah, we are very, very close to getting in the green on all 4 categories. And yeah, very exciting stuff. So hopefully, maybe actually this could be the week. Well, yeah, it could. Well, I don't know actually, because the triple play is probably not going to be the greatest odds. So I don't know if we could actually even get enough profit to get in the green there, even though it's less than a unit in the red. But just because of the way the odds work out, who knows? Anyway, that is it for the bets. That is it for me. We will go back to the studio now here. Those are all the bets. I mean, everything else is below. The socials are below. I haven't really been posting as much yet. We'll see if because, I mean, people haven't really been looking at it, so I haven't really been posting anyway. But maybe I'll go back to it again soon. We'll see. But most of the stuff is the same stuff that you see here anyway. But yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I'm so excited for this card. I'm not going to lie. It's just one of those cards, you know, where it's just like, okay, let's get through this card. Then we've got Miami next. I actually don't even know if that's next week. I can't remember. Is it next week? But either way, this is the last of the questionable cards. There's a lot of good cards after that. I mean, Atlantic City looks decent. Miami looks absolutely insane. 300 is in there. I think there's one or two Vegas ones maybe before 300, but I think those ones looked okay. This one is kind of the low point, so we'll get through this and move on. But there's a lot of huge favorites on this card, so hopefully that means some good profit on there for us. But yeah, that is it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody.